So I will be very short because I've already talked this morning and gave the main information and the latest information. I just and also because my colleagues Sylvain Chevassus or Antonin has already explained all that I could say now about the framework in France. So just let me remember about the AFNOR, ADEME, which are the organizations leading the work among all the stakeholders. So AFNOR is the standard French standard association, and ADEME is an agency for environment and energy. And so we have this large, very, very big platform. I don't know if it's different from a forum, but this place of debate among all the stakeholders and under the coordination of ADEME AFNOR. And so about the PCR, we've got sectoral groups, and it depends on the voluntary of the stakeholders and the actors. So there is no specific rules on the subject of which category shall we talk about, on which category shall we produce information rules and so on. And so there's the list of the sector working groups in that platform. But I will go through that and give you the list. More interested, I think, on our subject. That are the 12 PCR that are now adopted in France. So adopted because the idea is that we are working in sectoral working groups to produce the PCR, and then it goes back to the general platform, AFNOR ADEME platform, which validate, certify, adopted this PCR. So we've got this list, and as you can see, I don't know if it corresponds to CPC, to the codes that we've talked before. Some of these PCR are related to very short category, very narrow category of products, and some of them are far much broader. If I take the food and beverage PCR, of course, it's a very large category, and we've got things like rackets to play tennis or to play tennis, and it's of course not so strategic. But the idea is that it's only voluntary on a voluntary basis, and we have this discussion in the first group, the food group, about what kind of PCR do we need. Shall we build PCR very broad, very large, with general rules and principles, or shall we test our capacities with a very small, specific category of products, for example, tomatoes, and just try to build a PCR with the tomato before thinking about something larger? And so you see that in the different groups, there has been different ideas on that issues. You've got also on the right the list that is now on the progress. So the French food and beverage PCR has been adopted by the platform just last week, so it's very fresh information, but there is nothing really new inside the PCR. So it's just to refresh your minds about the fact that in the PCR and previously the BPX 30323 indicates what is to be developed in a PCR. And so you have got to precise the main impacts, the main challenges, environmental challenges, the functional unit, the indicators, and the calculation methods, and etc., etc. So you can read those. So we've got the stakeholders decided that for the French, for food, the main impacts were climate change, water, and biodiversity. I mean, it's not something it's just at the moment. Maybe in few months or years, one could think that these are not the main impacts, or maybe that there are other impacts more important, or maybe that we have developed, we would develop methods in the future permitting us to stress and to focus on other impacts. So it's a list at that moment. We had also a long discussion about the functional unit, and so you see how it is written right now, and for the same reason it can change in the future. About the indicators, what is quite clear is for the GHG emissions, because we got an international standardized method, and it's quite difficult for the other one. We talked about the water use this morning. Recipe and use stocks for eutrophication and ecotoxicity, are still difficult for, especially for farmers and for agricultural organizations. So it's not so easy to explain what is under these indicators. Also, I'd like to say that biodiversity is still a challenge, and if I can invite you to work on a matter, not only on the carbon matter, it would be maybe biodiversity, because it's a very difficult issue, and specifically in agricultural sector, because if you use LCA approaches, the more surface you use, the more area you use, and the worse the indicator is. And of course, in agriculture, we've got the idea that it could be useful to use large surface if it means with low level of intensification. So we've got many discussion and about biodiversity. My three last points would be the ones that explained why it was so long to adopt this PCR, because there were tough discussions inside the group about the allocation. We've got different ideas on allocation, and in fact, we have general principles in that PCR, but the idea now is that some sub-sectors in food industry would develop sub-sectoral PCR. That is, for example, the milk industry or the meat industry explain that this general PCR is not enough for them, and that they need something more precise for their category of products. So, and specifically on the allocation problem. We've talked also quite a long time about the data. Well, primary data and secondary data is not so difficult, but we've got in this PCR the specific idea that we could have also a third category of data that are the semi-specific data. The idea is that we would propose by default a data, but if a company should produce its own data, it could be possible. That is that third category of data. And the last thing, is the validity of data. So quite a difficult issue also, because between the largest companies or the consulting firms and the small companies, it's something very important. for how long will the data will be used, and at what moment do you need to change, or at what moment can you change the data that you use in the indicators. So at that very moment, the idea is that for 3 years, things are stabilized, the data are stabilized, and you don't have to change them. But maybe in the future we will change also these rules.